And they always do this, me, because they know this area here in the chest, this is where the true seat of consciousness is. This is, in a sense, this is adulteration. This is why we do this, and this is why we do this, because it truly is devilish. It sets you against yourself, and it sets you against others, and it erects all these kind of barriers, and it just leaves you with ever-decreasing options to get steadily worse. The last one makes the others entirely irrelevant, because if you tick that last box, that's it. You're a slave from the cradle to the grave. 81% of the planet are slaves. Now you may wonder, slaves to what? Well, by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly where you fit on this scale, because there are 8 traits that run common through all of them. And the last one makes the others entirely irrelevant, because if you tick that last box, that's it. You're a slave from the cradle to the grave. The first one is everyone is suffering. It doesn't matter how rich, how poor, beautiful, ugly, any statistic you can think, right? Every single person is suffering. On some level, they hate themselves, they hate their existence, they hate factors they think they're out of their control. They're generally not very happy, right? This state I call adulteration. And it's the exact contrast of innocence. Innocence is where a warrior lives. It's where a child lives, because all children are warriors when they step into this realm, and it's beaten out of them really, really quick. Now, due to this suffering, they will feel insecure. And this insecurity is preyed upon via the media, because that's the main way they use to sell you things. Plastic surgery, this. I mean, have you ever seen a person get just one plastic surgery? You haven't. And the reason you don't see that is because that insecurity is an energy within. And because they don't deal with that energy, it manifests in different ways. This is another trait we're going to get into later. But this is how it all comes down, because insecurity comes and it creates the need to wear masks. Masks is the third state. Now, that'll be, you've got somebody who'll be like, yeah, I'm Mr. Cool, or someone who'll be like, yeah, I'm Miss Sexy, right? And they present this image to you. And social media has took this and amped it up to 1,000, because you've got people who will like fake on top of their fakery, and the hope that you invest into it so they can believe the illusion that you are buying from them. Tell me that isn't crazy. Tell me that doesn't sound like we're a schizophrenic society where people have gone entirely mad and the inmates long ago took over the asylum. But that is exactly how it is. And you know, I go into all of these traits in more detail in the article that I pinned in the comments. Now, because of these masks and because of the way they shift, this is why you're a different person when you're talking to him, different person when you're talking to your boss, different person when you're talking to your child. There is something consistent in all of them, and that is who you truly are. But these masks, they just change all the time, all the time. I mean, Will Smith is a great example. Actually, I'll link that article as well, because everyone had Will pinned as this nice guy, and then when he went and threw his pin pan down, then it was like, oh, maybe Will ain't such a nice guy. And Will's entire motivation for getting to where he wanted to in life was so no girl would ever treat him like that again. And look what he got, right? This is why they say destiny will find a man on a path that he often takes to avoid it. Now, due to the nature of these masks and how elusive they are, I mean, imagine if somebody put a pair of specs on you when you were born, right? Or better yet, they put contact lenses on you when you were born, and you had no idea they were in there. You would need to remove them, but you'd automatically flinch at someone coming near your eye. But that's how the mask works. So people pretend not to wear these masks. If you ask them, everyone will tell you, yeah, I'm totally authentic, this is who I am, what you see is what you get, and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the case at all. That's not the case, because all you're doing is shifting one kind of fake for another kind of fake, right? Now, the reason why people wear these masks, point number 5, is because they had a crappy childhood. Everywhere. Every single person, right? And the reason why this is, it doesn't matter, once again, poor, rich, ugly, whatever, it doesn't matter what you got, what you think you didn't get, you had a crappy childhood, all right? It can be something as simple as believing in Santa Claus. We'll get into the Santa Claus, or the Satan Claus as it's more accurate, because that is ridiculously damaging. We'll do that in another video. But everyone is suffering because of their childhood. There's things in there that they want, things that are needs that were never met, or problems they inherited. This is due to the fact that you were born to adulterated parents. You were born to people who were slaves. You come from a long line of slaves. All of them have no knowledge of self. Ergo, they just keep repeating the patterns that are passed down generationally, and each one gets worse, right? This is why we're heading to an idiocracy. It's not a good state, but that is exactly how it is. The 6th trait is every single slave places their power outside of them. Stop and think how foolish that is, right? Stop and think. If you look at a slave's words and they'll tell you that being self-centered is bad. Well, if you're not centered in self, where the hell else are you going to be centered? Huh? At a church, at a temple, at a mosque, at your bank, with your possessions? These things are outside of you. Do you see? Once again, it goes back to innocence and adulteration. The child is fully naturally centered. It's their standard equipment. If you ask a child, who are you? They say me. And they always do this, me. Because they know this area here in the chest, this is where their true seat of consciousness is. This is innocence. This is adulteration. This is why we do this, and this is why we do this. A piece is starting to click now, because all you're living in a mind-made prison inside your head. Now, one of the worst side effects of this disconnection is people no longer know how to speak body language, right? They can't. If they get an ache in their pain, right, then they think that's just something wrong with their body. They don't realize there's an emotional content to it. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a lady I was working with who had breast cancer, and it was like, I told her, I said, look, there's something in this that's a lot more symbolic. Do you know what I mean? There's more to this than what you're thinking it is. And she started doing some dream work. And we were going there, we were going through her dreams and looking back at her life and a few bits of analysis. And it turned out that one of the most powerful dreams that she had was she had a leech on her breast. And when she took the leech off, it had her grandmother's face. And they'd always had a very bad relationship. This woman was a pure narcissist. And she was extracting energies from her, even in death. And that's what was killing her. Now, it didn't fix her, because the more she started delving into her subconscious, the more scared she got, because then she started seeing her mask. She started having to acknowledge her suffering, her crappy childhood, and all of that. She was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And she would much rather go for chemotherapy, and then died. It is what it is. This is what I mean. People are so invested in this narrative, in this crap that's been pumped into your head, that the alternative petrifies them. If you want to make a slave sweat, put them in an empty room, no distractions, no company, 20 minutes. See what happens. They'll be screaming. They'll lose their minds. They'll absolutely hate it, right? But the most important trait number 8, the one that seals the deal. And if you do this, that's it. And you are a slave, your parents are slaves, and your children are probably going to be slaves too. If the only language you speak is English, you're done. It's half a language. And even that half has been flipped backwards and upside down, right? I'll give you more examples on this in another video, because it's something really to get into. But we create these resonances, these vibrations, and this is your internal, it codes your internal operating system. Now, English is so poor in that respect that, I mean, you know the story about, they say the Eskimos got like 400 words for snow, right? Well, you look at the word people use to describe affection, begins with an L, it says evil backwards, and that word is used to say that you like eating pizza, that you've met someone who is the perfect match for you, you enjoy watching something on TV. You see what I'm saying? How can one word, and that word, like I told you, it says evil backwards, right? So these are things that we're going to get into, but now you know if you're a slave. Because if you tick these boxes, then you're in the right place. Well, you're probably not, because 81% of you are not going to want to do this. 8% of you, however, are capable. You know what I mean? You've seen it, you're like, hang on a second, there's something wrong with the game. You know, the old splinter of your mind. And this is what I'll be laying down to you. This is how I'm going to show you how the game is played. Because the first thing is knowledge of self. Once you have that knowledge, then things start to change. So for example, going back, trait number 1, suffering. You have to admit that you're suffering. And to do that, it often helps if you take away all of your coping mechanisms, like the drugs, the sex, the computer games, social media, distractions with your friends, whatever it is, right? Insecurities. You have to actually sit down and admit them and really feel them, not cognitively, do you know what I mean? But sit there and be like, she don't really like that. And then you question, why don't I like that? Where did I get that impression from? Because, like I said, once again, no child steps into this world thinking, oh, if my ears were a different size, I'd be all right. Then you become aware of the masks that you're wearing. So you'll be wearing your butt-kissing mask with your boss, right? And then you'll be like, and you'll start seeing the masks. Because now you know that you're wearing the masks, you'll be like, and then you start thinking, okay, well, what's behind the mask? You know, why am I wearing the mask? What told me to wear the mask? And very often, as it links in with the childhood point, it's because you didn't want to displease your parents, or you were scared of getting the wrong reaction, you know, these kind of things. So now you know that you're not wearing the mask, so you start being more honest. And there is a way to be honest, because the problem with honesty is when you first start taking the mask off, a lot of people just act like pricks. Because it's like, wah, wah, wah. There's no need to rein it in anymore, right? So this comes back to dealing with your crappy childhood. There was a girl, and this girl was a straight up mess, really attractive from the outside, but inside it was like an emotional bomb had gone off. And you'd want absolutely nothing to do with it, because all she did was bring chaos everywhere she went. And she was like, how do I fix this? I can get a man, no problem, but I can't keep him. We started looking through her childhood, and it was the exact same thing that it came from her parents. And once again, she backed out as well. She was like, I don't want to do this, because a lot of people do not, this is not easy, right? It's a dirty game getting inside your brain, because there's so much filth that's been accumulated over generations. It's not just you in this lifetime. Oh, no. All that blood is flowing through your veins, and it's all got experience etched into it. You pick and choose parts of the narrative. That's the way. We'll get into that when I tell you the programmed language of reality and how the script of your life plays out, because your reality is scripted. You do not have any free will. Once you start doing all these other steps, you realize that the power is within you. You start becoming more centered. These are the three kingdoms. And once you align the three kingdoms, then it feels really nice. It feels really nice because you've got a sense of contentness. And that's why I call it innocence. Do you know what I mean? Because it's inside. And once you have it, then, believe it or not, you can talk to your organs. You can talk to your lungs. You can see what your liver's got to say. For example, your liver deals with anger. Your spleen deals with worry. Your lungs are full of grief. If you ever see somebody who just goes, and sighs a lot, they have a lot of unexpressed grief. If you see someone who just flies off the handle completely, they've got loads of anger stored inside the liver, right? These are all, everything is symbolic, like I told you with the woman with cancer, right? Now the next part when it comes to English, one of the main missions of the Will Help Me project is to create a new living language and gift it to the world. Because English is terrible. There's a reason I call it devilish, because it truly is devilish. It sets you against yourself, and it sets you against others, and it erects all these kind of barriers, and it just leaves you with ever-decreasing options to get steadily worse, right? It's not a nice way to live, but it's been going on for a long time, and nobody ever talks about it, because these things here that I've just mentioned, people ignore them, right? People pretend not to suffer. They'll go to a doctor to pop a pill. They'll pretend not to be insecure, they'll go get a plastic surgeon. They'll pretend not to wear masks and by telling you how real they are. They'll pretend they didn't have a crappy childhood because their minds have edited all of their life story to remove. That was the case I told you with that girl that was a mess. When I first spoke to her, she was like, oh, this happened, and this happened. And I said, how come like in your entire childhood, there's like 8 memories or 10 memories and there's huge gaps in between them? Once we start filling out the gaps, for example, what you do is you get a large piece of paper. Piece of wallpaper is good for this. Stick it on the wall, put a line at one side which says when you were born, another one here which says where you are, and you start filling in key memories, and you see how many blanks you got. Now, all of those memories do exist, but they're inside your subconscious. Your body is your subconscious. That's where the aches and pains come from the repressed memories. And then you start filling them in, and each time you start increasing your resolution. This then, you are now learning how to speak to your body. And once you learn how to speak to your body, you see the effect that devilish has when you're saying one thing and you think it means, I feel affectionate towards you. And what it's actually doing is turning your heart field in on itself. Or when, no, I'm not going to say that because I don't even know how to put these words, because I don't use these words. These words are spells and rites. Why do you think they call joined up writing in cursive? They've told you, it's written on the tin, that this stuff is not good for you, but you keep on doing it, and you keep on doing it. But we're going to get into that more. This is just a preview of these 8 traits. So check them with your own life, see how it fits, see what you think. See you with me again.